Welcome to GTI Setco, another tutorial video that we've promised to do every week. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And this video we're going to be talking about proper installation and removal, mostly installation of a spindle. And we do have a seminar here which I'm going to use as my guide to go through all the specific things that you need to check while installing a spindle. Now this particular spindle here is a Bryant replacement. This is a spindle that we sell that will be a direct replacement to a Bryant. And the first thing to be cognizant of, this is going to slip into a housing. So we need to make sure whatever housing this clamps into, that we go by the torque specs of what is clamping on that so that we over clamp on the bearings. It's a simple thing, but it's very, very important. Now, I'm going to walk over to the drive here as he shows the front of the spindle. The next thing I want to do is just jog that drive to know which direction I'm going in, which the proper direction for a grinding spindle in most cases is counterclockwise. But as these get wired, we wire them, and most repair places will wire them as they come in. If it's been switched on the machine side, it's going to get wired different for other machines. So you need to check this, because if you do spin this backwards, you will spin the front nut off. If there's a quill installed, you will spin off the front quill. So it's very, very important. And you can see I'm not going to measure it here, but I've done a little setup of an indicator. The face is your contact point and your ID for this tooling quill that we have here down on the bottom. So we do need to take run-out measurements, make sure nothing was damaged in shipping, that we have a couple of microns or less on both the face and the ID, and then we can install the quill also and do a measurement on that to make sure it's seating properly as well. It's very good practice for that. Now next is also to make sure the quill fits. The quill fit is important. Now here's a real important one that a lot of people miss, and this is on the back of the spindle, so I'm going to move out of the way. This is our lube fitting. Those should always be installed clean and dry. No Teflon tape or pipe dope like you see on the coolant line. There is no filter between this lubricator over here all the way through the line to this. It's a high-speed spindle atomized air oil. We do not have a filter, or nobody has a filter that runs between the air and the oil. So anything that would get into this spindle core or fitting that we're rebuilding this in a clean room, that will get into the spindle bearings and become a problem. The other thing is this air oil line from the last spindle that was in it is more than likely laying in the coolant tray. So what we need to do, and I'm not going to do it here, is we're going to turn on the air for 5 seconds and purge this line out in case it got cluttered with any coolant or any sort of spray. Then we can install it into the spindle once it's been, fully blown out. And then the next thing we'll do is we'll check all of our lube settings. We want to make sure, now it's different on every spindle. So this is a Bryant replacement. Typically they're 20 pounds PSI going into the spindle, usually 80 to 100 pounds going into the lubricator. And those are your proper settings for this, but it can go all the way up to 60 pounds on some spindles that have air oil going through the bearings themselves. So check your owner's manual on that, and that'll do all of your air settings. But this is not a through tool coolant spindle here. This is just a regular ID grinding spindle. The ones that have through tool coolant may have two other air seals for the back for the through tool coolant, which you need to check the OEM manual for those pressures too. They're usually around 15 to 20 pounds. And then we move to our warm-up cycle, which we're not going to warm this spindle up, but rule of thumb is 25% of full speed every half an hour while checking temperature. You can speed that up on an air oil mist spindle or an air oil injected spindle by using the rule and the temperature as your guide. As long as you're below 115 degrees Fahrenheit or 120 degrees between each check and increment to run up, you'll be fine. And then achieve full speed, make sure it settles for a good half hour to an hour, and then you'll be ready for run up. And then lastly would be a vibration analysis. Now, this particular spindle probably isn't going to have anything added to it other than the tooling quill. But if, you know, in some cases we got rotary unions, we've got pulleys, we've got other things that get added to a spindle while it's being installed, and a trim balance with the vibration analyzer may be necessary. So, you know, keep that in mind. We have the sensor, the iPad system with the tachometer. We can do a trim balance on there, and we're also going to do a full runoff. And I'll put this in the notes as well. Your guideline for overall velocity on a spindle at full speed is 0.0395 inches per second and 1 G or lower in acceleration. So those are your guideline numbers for most 90% of high-speed spindles that you'll come across. And once all those things are met, you're pretty much ready to run and run your first trial parts. There's one other thing I wanted to add. This is a common thing that I see, is people using air guns to clean off a spindle during install or even removal. These spindles have no filtration in them. You spray air at it, you'll overcome the air oil, which is only 15 to 20 pounds going in, and you'll force that contaminant through the labyrinths. There are no contact seals in the front of spindles, so please keep that in mind as a contamination prevention, and you'll be 100% successful with your spindle installs. So we appreciate your attention on this tutorial. If you have any other questions, please reach out to us at www.gtispindle.com or 603-669-5993.